In this video, I am going to explain about introduction of the medieval period in Indian history. The history of India is divided into three different periods: ancient, medieval and modern. You have already read about the ancient period in class 6. Now you will learn about medieval period in class 7 and modern period will learn in next class 8. Now we will start chapter 1, the medieval period in history. In this chapter you will learn about introduction of medieval period, about cartography and sources of medieval history. So let's start. The period that lies between the ancient and the modern periods of history is known as the medieval period. This medieval period is stretched from the 8th to the 18th century. Each period covers many centuries. A century has 100 years. So the medieval period in India covers about 1,000 years. For better understanding, historians divided this period into two parts: the early medieval period and the late medieval period. The early medieval period. It is stretched from the 8th to the 13th century. The Palas, the Pratiharas, the Rashtrakutas, the Cholas and the Rajputs were the powerful ruling dynasties during this period. Means most of the studies based on these powerful ruling dynasties in this period. That means 8th to the 13th century. Second is the late medieval period. This period lasted from the 13th to the 18th century. It covers the rule of Turks, the Afghans and the Mughals. They were the foreign invaders. Foreign invaders means बाहर के आक्रमणकारी, जिन्होंने हमारे देश पर आक्रमण कर कई सारे एरियाज को अपने अंडर में कर लिया था. They ruled in India during this period. The many names of India. Our country is commonly referred to as Bharat, India or Hindustan. But India was known by different names at different points in history. Bharatvarsh and Jambudvipa are two of the earliest names by which our country was known in ancient times. In the medieval period, the rulers in the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals called their dominion Hindustan. Minaj-e-Siraz, a chronicler in the 13th century, used the term Hindustan for the areas of Punjab, Haryana and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna under the Delhi Sultanate. Babur used the term Hindustan to describe the geography, natural vegetation and the culture of the inhabitants of subcontinent. And the 19th century, Britishers used the name India for this subcontinent. Cartography. Cartography is the art of drawing or making maps, and a person who makes map is referred to as a cartographer. We use maps to learn about the location and the geographical features of a region or a country. In ancient time, people was unknown about cartography, but in the medieval period, the growth of trade and expansion of empires created the need for maps. So the Arabs and Europeans developed cartography. Now you think, how did India introduce about cartography? So, through the trade contact with the Arabs and the Europeans, India introduced about cartography. Take a look at map 1 and map 2. Map 1 was made in 1154 CE by the Arab geographer Al-Idrisi. In this map, place names are marked in Arabic. Next, map 2. Map 2 was made nearly 600 years after map 1. It was made 1720s by a French cartographer. This map seems more familiar to us and provides detailed information about coastal areas. This map used by many European sailors and merchants. Sources of medieval period. The historical sources for studying the medieval period can be divided into archaeological sources and literary sources. Archaeological sources. It includes monuments, coins, inscriptions, and artifacts. One by one, I will explain about these sources. Monuments. Monuments are old buildings like temples, mosques, forts, tombs, palaces. During medieval period, a large number of monuments were built. These monuments tells us about the engineering and architectural styles of that times. Coins. Coins were issued by almost all the rulers of medieval period. These coins were made up of different metals like gold, silver, copper, etc. Coins give the names of rulers who issued the coin and the date of its issue. And it also helps us to understand the economical condition of a kingdom. The study of coins is called numismatics, and a person who studies coins is called numismatist. Inscriptions. Inscriptions are written records engraved on hard surfaces such as metal plates, stones, walls, pillars, etc. Inscriptions gives us information about the names of the kings, the extent of their empire, and their victories in battles, etc. The study of inscription is called epigraphy, and a person who study inscription is called epigraphist. Artifacts. Artifacts are the man-made objects such as tools and weapons, ornaments, pottery, seals, utensils, etc. They tell us about the kind of life people lived, their occupations, and their social setup. Paintings. Paintings are another valuable source. They tell us about the customs, food habits, dress, jewelry of the people of that period. Many styles of miniature paintings evolved during this period. Literary sources. It refers to the written records of the past. A number of written records are available in this period because paper was introduced around the 13th century in India and it became more common and cheaper. The text written during the medieval period preserved in libraries and archives. Archives. Archives is a place where the historical records and documents are stored. In the medieval period, there was no printing press, so scribes were copied document by hand. Do you know who were scribes? Scribes were people who were employed to keep records. They made copies of the original documents. Now, one by one, we will understand about the literary sources. Chronicles. Chronicles are records. Which type of records? Records of the rule of kings and life at the court. Most kings had court chroniclers who wrote in detail about what happened during their reign. Some important chronicles of medieval period are Raj Tarangini. Raj Tarangini written by Kalhan. It is a history of the kings of Kashmir. Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi written by Ziauddin Barani. It describes the history of the sultans of Delhi. Tughlaqnama written by Amir Khusro deal with the reign of the Tughlaqs. Autobiographies. Autobiographies are stories of people's life written by that person. The most important autobiographies are Futuhat-e-Firoz Shahi by Firoz Shah Tughlaq, Babarnama by Babur, and Tuzuk-e-Jahangiri by Emperor Jahangir. Biographies. Biographies are the stories of people's life written by someone else. Some important biographies are Prithviraj Raso written by Chandbar Dai. This biography describes the life and adventures of the Chauhan ruler Prithviraj Chauhan. Humayunama by Gulbadan Begum. It gives a lot of information about the reign of Mughal Emperor Humayun. Akbarnama by Abul Fazl. It describes the events of Emperor Akbar's region. Travelers' accounts. Many foreign travelers visited India during this period. They wrote their journey and experiences in their accounts. Some of the names are Al-Baruni, who came from Central Asia; Ibn Battuta came from Morocco; Marco Polo and Niccolo Conti came from Italy; Bernier came from France. All these sources gives important information about medieval period. Now this video is over. I will explain next topic, major historical developments of medieval period, in my next video, part 2 of this chapter.